Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome to the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, hey, welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have the one, the only, Mr. Nathan Evans joining us here in just a moment, where we'll be talking about, a bunch of different news. A lot of it is, fortunately, so many times on the show we talk about, the future of big tech and, really heavy things like Utah banning pornography on cell phones and mobile devices. Good luck with that. We talk about that day to day, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure Nathan has his own opinions on those topics, but hey, we have a lot of entertainment stuff as well, which, it's something that we don't cover on a regular basis here on the program. But hey, that's what's, that's what he's here for, and of course, that's what Popzara.com is for. If you want a good mix of reviews, podcasts, articles, movie reviews, game reviews, book reviews, they do it all. Highly recommend that you check that out. And yeah, of course, popzara.com. And if you just need to remember computeramerica.com, because that's where you'll find everything, including past shows, future shows, all the shows. And we'll have links to our guests and the podcast and all that good stuff. So everyone, thank you again for tuning into the show. And I should probably get ahead of this. I'm going to talk a little bit about it in just a minute, but we apologize for the no-show yesterday. We had some technical difficulties here at the house, and I blame everything on Craig. So there you have it. Everyone, with that being said, let's go ahead and bring on Nathan because he's always fun to talk to. And yeah, so managing editor of Popzara, of course, him and his team over there try to do their best to, capture everything that's going on in the tech world, in the gaming world, in, the entertainment world, and more. It's not an easy job. And of course, you may recall Popzara being one of our most helpful, friends to cover events like CES, E3, and more. I don't know how many events are going to survive the pandemic, but hey, going forward, that's still a huge, that is still a huge help to us here on Computer America. Nathan, welcome back on to Computer America. How you doing?
Hey, Ben, how's it going? By the way, I would say an arranged marriage of convenience that worked out.
What's that?
Us. No, the joining of the brands, no dowry involved. So you mentioned, I asked you for permission before the show if I could rant about one quick thing before we get on. So I got a PSA for all the Computer America listeners out there.
Go for it.
So did you get the text message I just sent you?
For reference, The Verge, PlayStation, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, same thing. Okay. So I'm not always the biggest fan of The Verge. I'm not really the biggest fan of Voxpedia as a rule. They do good stuff sometimes, but then they do stuff like this. So The Verge and a lot of websites, but specifically The Verge is guilty of this, where they will post stories they know are false when they post them, specifically regarding the availability of console systems like the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. They do this like 100 times a week. It's in, it's out, it's in, it's out. And
I've seen them.
you will never buy a system like this because they're trying to game the system. This is Vox Media trying to game the SEO system so they can increase their viability on search engine optimization because everyone is trying to get this.
So they're trying to game the system. I'm sorry to cut you off, but they're trying to say that available PlayStation 5. Someone tries to Google that, or PlayStation 5 in stock, and they will be redirected to these articles or these websites,
which will bring you to a non-existent landing point. You will not buy a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X or any of these things through these websites. But when you will go there, look at all this other stuff you can buy. And I won't say who, but I have some colleagues who've been receiving a lot of predatory emails from Best Buy and other outlets where they know you will not be able to purchase the item they are advertising. But,
right.
And some of them have specifically said, well, while you're here, why not try this instead? I know Newegg has been guilty of this a lot. But it's come on, people, come on, don't do this. All it does is create frustration through through the spam bots and through the scalpers, which, by the way, still haven't fixed the problem.
Yeah. There's a whole can of worms there with bots that at the same time, like it helps their brand image to take a firm stance against bots, but it of course helps their brand bottom line to allow as many bots as they want. That's a very tricky situation, but
it's the real story isn't like websites like The Verge scamming the system. The real story, and this is not really a discussion for today, of course, but it's people forget that Steve Jobs, RIP, his last great thing was hiring Tim Cook to take control of his company because Tim Cook was the man who figured this stuff out.
Yeah.
And nobody else seems to have. The only two companies in the world that have figured this stuff out have been Apple and McDonald's. And that's it.
Supplying a massive demand.
Yes. Yeah, they have supplied this massive demand in a way that's just ridiculous. We talk about the PlayStation 5 selling 4 million systems. That's fantastic. Apple sells that in a day. And they sell their product at like 3 times the price. Like they figured it out, and Microsoft and Nintendo and Sony and all these other consumer markets have not figured it out.
There's a scene from some of the newer seasons of Futurama, which is still a decade old at this point. But there was a scene where the iPhone, the one that they jam into your eye socket, where they have the genius there, and he's like, it's like, yeah, I'd like to buy a new iPhone, and he's like, I'll see if we have one in the back, and he like reaches back there behind the curtain, and there's a whole factory, and there's millions of them. Like it's that the rarity. It's like if you can get one, you're lucky, but at the same time, Apple's like, there's plenty for everyone, but you're still lucky to get one. I guess they have that dichotomy going.
Hey Ben, shut up and take my money.
Exactly. Shut up and take my money. That's another Futurama one. Yep.
But I just look at this and I'm just like, come on, people. You're just making people upset. Like, oh, I'm going to get it. Your dream. It's like Charlie at the Chocolate Factory. You're not getting a golden ticket. Okay. You're not getting into the Wonderland.
I wish that there was a better solution. I don't know, waiting list maybe or something like that instead of these random drops that happen every so often. But just like you covered this a lot with the Nintendo Switch. I mean, it takes years for supply to meet demand sometimes.
Pre-orders. I mean, I'm not a big fan of pre-orders for software, but pre-order the damn thing. And then you will have an order on. Like if you really want one, the stores want this. But what they don't seem to be doing, they don't seem to be addressing the problem, is that their customer base is being modulated like this. It's literally creating animosity when you go to these websites repeatedly and they don't have the product because it sells out in 2 seconds because the spam bots have spammed the system.
Yeah, and,
Yeah, you're driving these poor kids to like greasy gas stations in the middle of the night, handing over sweaty things of money. Yeah, that sounds good. But no,
scalpers will do what scalpers do. And I'd say that this, like all of this leads back to an issue we've been covering on the show on a pretty regular basis, which is the shortage of chips in the global supply chain and all of the problems that has caused.
It's caused a problem. I mean, but you know what, though? I don't know how real that story is because you have companies like NVIDIA, right, coming out and saying, well, we're going to address this by using software to deactivate what are the major causes of why people would want our video cards. So it's
That
like
was
you're
very controversial.
anticipating,
Yeah.
yeah, controversial and stupid. And you know what? It's like you're selling me a product. I'm going to do with this product as I like to do with this product.
Yeah.
You don't get to say. It's like when Keurig had DRM on their coffee pods.
Yep.
It's like,
Yep.
come on, people.
Which of course was defeated by a piece of Scotch tape. But yeah, we have felt the same way about John Deere saying that you buy this $350,000 piece of farm equipment, but you're not allowed to change the BIOS because that's our software. And it's like, look, same argument, different company.
Then am I upset that I didn't get on board early with the scalper thing? Am I upset that I couldn't myself be a scalper? Maybe a little. Is that why I'm angry? Possibly. But in reality I will say this: in the good old days, I was a scalper, but not anymore. I've learned my lesson. I just want a PlayStation 5, and I don't want to pay $1 million for it. No, but as a journalist, though, I mean, I would consider myself something of an advocacy watchdog, and I will say this: I don't like it. Don't do it. Like, don't use your readers like that. It's gross.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. And that whole situation with that. Now, before we get any further into other things, I wanted to talk real quick why yesterday we did not have a show here. And just so everyone knows, we're doing renovations here, studio house, all that good stuff. And there was a cable along the floor, and it was run 15 years ago. And we're like, hey, this probably doesn't do anything. And turns out that was the cable that ran from the router, because we have a cable that goes from the modem to the router, which is in a separate room, and then from the router back into the same room. And that cable powered the switch, which powered every Ethernet.
What cable was it? Was it Ethernet?
It was an Ethernet cable. And unfortunately, Craig, for one reason or another, if you're listening, I'm totally throwing him under the bus. He said, that's an old phone line. And I said, no, that looks like an Ethernet cable. He said, no, it's for the phone. It was not. It was the return line, and that powered the switch and every Ethernet port in the house. So, I could not figure it out why I didn't have internet until, about 11 o'clock today. And I was very frustrated. I stayed up for like 10 hours. Nathan, if I never see, your IP, this connection doesn't have a properly set up IP address or whatever it was. If I never see that error message again, too soon. Oh my God.
I agree with you, man. Like I told you, we talked about this 2 months ago when I actually paid good money to run a cable under my basement. I told you about this. And people are like, why would you run a cable? Because it's better. Mm-hmm. As long as you don't cut it. Someone told me, by the way, and I guess it's too late now, that if you're going to run a cable that's that intensive, you should color code it. Like you should have some sort of sign that it's not to be cut. Because a lot of these cables are brown, they're black, they're dingy, they're not Fruit Loop colored. They're just, they're not the bright blue colors you get from
and that's actually one of the weird things is, because when I saw it, I recommend that we don't cut it because it wasn't a telephone line and data and all that good stuff. But the problem was all of our cables are like a blue color to them. Mm-hmm. And the weird thing is that the cable that we had, it was, wrapped in this plastic sheathing. It was out of the way. It was actually very nicely installed, but it was white. And it seems like between the two ends, it was spliced into the blue cable that, we know not to cut. But in the middle, it was white for some weird reason. And I didn't immediately recognize it.
It's got to look like a piece of licorice. If it doesn't look like licorice, you want to cut it. You got to give it some style. You got to mark it off. And by the way, a phone cable looks nothing like an Ethernet cable. A phone cable is copper.
Much thicker.
It's copper. But anyway, you're back. See,
we're back.
That's your show. You could have done a mediocre show with low bit rate and pixelated. It would have looked like a Skype call from 1999. Nathan, but no, you had to have Ethernet.
I wish I could have. I could not. I physically did not have the software set up anywhere else to do that. That's maybe something worth looking into. Like you said, maybe even like a second ISP line, things like that.
A lot of people have those too. A lot of the people have the two.
I'm not set up for catastrophe or randomly cut cables. It's something that disaster preparedness I need to work on. So with that being said, let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any. I feel like there was one more thing I wanted to mention before we did, kind of all of this, but it's not coming to my brain. So Nathan, why don't we go ahead and get started with stuff stuff that we were here to talk about originally.
Sure. What do we got?
Okay. The first one, and by the way, I thought it was a pretty big non-story. You included it. Every other website that I kind of follow to, kind of pick through the news and things like that. And of course, I was, bombarded my email by Razer because Razer is like the one company I know that has more PR people than executives. What's the proper way to say this? Their emails at the end, it's like, feel free to contact any of our PR reps, and they have like 8 of them. I'm like, man, that's they're good at PR. So one of the ways that they're good at PR is promoting products. And this new product, it's not the Razer Blade, the laptop. It's not the Razer mouse. It's not the Razer headset. It's not the Razer keyboard.
We talked about this thing in our CES wrap up.
It was a concept design, but that seems to not be the case anymore.
Well, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The masks aren't going anywhere. They're going to become a permanent, literally a fixture. I'm not an anti-masker, but I am a realist. I don't like wearing masks. I don't like the way they make me feel. I know for a fact I can't breathe as well. I have asthma, so it doesn't help. My mouth feels dirty. If you're virulently pro-mask without scientific background, that's politics. If you understand that masks make people feel better, and sometimes a little sacrifice is good for the general psyche of the population, then you're a human. And I think I fall into the latter category. But I will say this, they're not going anywhere the same way Asia has never quite left the mask mandate from SARS years ago. Mm-hmm. So companies like Razer is going to come in and others and going to try to, and I hate to say it like this, and I apologize to Razer, they're going to try to take advantage. And so what they're doing is they're taking their, how do I say it, their luminousness to masks.
Their RGB-ness, yes.
Yeah, their RGB-ness. You thought RGB on RAM sticks was ridiculous? Here's some RAM sticks on masks.
I actually like that. I'll say it. I actually like RGB on all the little components inside a computer. I'm actually a fan.
Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had this one friend who spent like $300 on socks one time, and I was like, "Why are you spending all that money on socks?" He's like, "Oh, but they're silk." I was like, "But you can't see them; they're covered up." He's like, "But I know they're there."
Well, like, they make the plexiglass. Socks. I want my computer case when I open the case to look like the Ark of the Covenant is just popping out of it. I like the colors. I do.
But you can't see the Ark of the Covenant because if you look at it, you melt.
That's
like
okay though.
Like the Nazi, you melt like a crayon in the sun.
That's okay.
So I'll just say this. No, I mean, but here's the thing though. I told you this before. What is it? It was Project Hazel. They'll probably call it something else. So long story short, they're going to have RGB enabled masks with filters and all this sort of thing. This is interesting for Razer though, because this is Razer making a huge step outside their traditional markets and going into the wearable technology like they've never really done before. They've made tiptoes, but this is it. They want something to be mainstream. But I'll be honest with you, I don't want to look like Bane from Batman, and these things look like Bane from Batman.
They are transparent. That's the only way I'll kind of disagree with you there. It's they're transparent. So and this has been a topic among like sociologists and blah blah blah, that masks cover the way that you pick up emotions, and people seeing people's faces is very human. They're transparent, so you can see lips and potentially hear each other better. So it does have that going for it.
I do want to stop you there because you're right, but I want to expand on it. What the whole pandemic thing has taught us incontrovertibly is that human beings are social creatures, as we all knew. It's sort of like I saw a story on the news today saying if you eat a lot of fast food, you die earlier. Duh. Like, you don't need a study for that. The study's called go to a fast food restaurant. There's your study. So, but anyway, the fact is we're not designed to be apart from each other. Human beings are designed, like you and I have pretty good tech right now. I could see you, but you can't see me because you'd melt like a crayon.
I've seen you before. I assume you haven't changed.
I know. Your audience couldn't handle it. So, but what I'm saying though is that
Ladies
even
and
with
gentlemen, I
Zoom,
want
even
everyone
with
to know Nathan Evans. He's never showed his face here on the show. He
yeah,
looks very normal. He looks like a regular human being. I want everyone to know
that's
that.
that's true. But thank you for this. And I'll send the check. But what I'm saying is, long story short, that we're designed to be around each other. We're designed to be social. We're designed to be in the same room and talking to each other. And like 80% of our communication is nonverbal. But when you reduce that to text messages and you reduce that to Zoom calls and even the best of times, uh, basically it's going to be a lost generation for children like who have not been able to socialize. And a lot of it has to do with like you said, you try to put someone on a Zoom call, but there's always interference. There's bit differentials. There's all this. But with
Right.
these masks with the holes in them, you can see someone's lips. That is a huge improvement over the face diapers that people usually wear.
Right.
And this is a yeah. I mean, I can't really laugh at Razer for doing this, but I kind of think why not go the extra mile and
Yeah.
like add LCD screens? You could have designer lips.
I've seen it, they have that on things like sunglasses and and helmets. Like let's face it, Daft Punk's been doing it for 20 years. I'm sure Razer
By
can
the way,
figure
by
it
the
out.
way, R.I.P. Daft Punk. You hear
Yeah,
about that?
was it really RIP? They haven't done anything in
Yeah,
7
the
years. I
robots have
mean,
deactivated themselves. No,
yeah,
they've produced like all the best hip hop for like the last 5 years.
yeah, but they haven't like as a team though produced their own stuff. I mean, yeah, they're still
No,
working in the industry, but are they really Daft Punk?
mm,
I don't know.
they split up.
Yeah. So that
Yeah,
happened. But hey, the
you know
music that they did bring us, we can all appreciate.
that's
The only
true.
thing I got to say about this whole Hazel thing, and I'm trying to scour the article for it. I'm trying, and obviously N95 filter, so it's going to be at least somewhat medical on top of this. Like it's actually going to serve some kind of purpose. They mentioned this thing that will like kind of repeat your voice. It will broadcast your voice a little bit so that it's not as muffled as if you were wearing like a scuba mask or something like that. I wish, and I'm not seeing here that they say it explicitly is. I wish it were Bluetooth so that you could use it as a way to handle calls on your phone and things like that. I would hope that it is, but I don't see any confirmation that it actually would sync up with your phone to work
Well,
as a Bluetooth piece.
do you remember our mutual contact when I first started this show? Was a big advocate of Google Glass and everything. And you remember my theory that one of the reasons why Google Glass was never going to work, which it didn't, and my theory why the Snapchat glasses weren't going to work, which they didn't, or the Facebook weren't going to, which they didn't. And the reason is very simple. They look stupid. And if something looks stupid, it's not going to work. It'll work with somebody because somebody likes stupid. But the
Mm-hmm.
general population, see, fashion is like vaccinations. You need to penetrate the market enough to build up its own self-sustaining ecosystem. And when something looks horrifically stupid and silly, it's not going to catch on. By the way, did you see the link I sent you? That's what I see. If you click on that, that's what I see when I see these things.
Yes. The Mad Max Fury Road dystopian mask. Yes.
See, I gotta say though, like, there's a lot of cool masks in Mad Max Fury Road, but if you start making a mask that has a digital thing that looks like that, it's gonna work. You get a Darth Vader skin, it's gonna work. It's gonna work. You could be a superhero, but they can't look like GI Joe rejects. They got to go all the way.
Get some partnership branding with all the Marvel characters, and yeah, you can sell it to
Yeah,
kids for sure.
it's gonna
Absolutely.
work. What kid wouldn't want to be Immortan Joe? Come on.
What kid wouldn't want half of a Spider-Man costume on his face? Absolutely. No,
Exactly.
and obviously Razer. I don't know what tipped the scale from a cool concept that let's face it, in kind of a dud year that was 2020. I don't know what tipped the scale from just artists sketching up and concepting and that kind of thing to a full-blown product. But I think that maybe what you kind of mentioned at the beginning was Razer is looking to break out from just being computer peripherals, and maybe they're trying to get into other sectors, including
So
fashion and other things.
can I tell you, a very similar trajectory would be a company like Wacom. I call them Wacom. I know they're pronounced Wacom, but
Wacom,
I'm stuck
Wacom.
in my
Yep.
I'm stuck in my ways. So, but basically, for years they served very well a very niche product, which is digital designers. But
Mm-hmm.
as digital designing went mainstream, they suffered because you can't sell $1,000 Intuos to Joe Schmo who wants to doodle. So you see competition arise with Apple styluses, with Samsung styluses. So now you can get then they became more consumer grade, cheaper, and they started selling the service, sort of like how Dolby Digital sells like software engineering.
Right.
And so, but they've become successful. They've expanded the brand without diluting it. And I think someone like Razer, who sells, let's just be honest, very expensive computer peripherals with lights, they make good products, but it's a niche product, and they never really took advantage of the pandemic in any other way they could have. Can I tell you something though? To full disclosure,
Mm-hmm.
Razer did send us a productivity kit to review on Popzara a couple months ago.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was a very expensive
They
stripped down
Yeah, that
keyboard
and
and
really
mouse.
and you know, just like you said, they hadn't really taken advantage of other markets. That was their push, and they did it in combination. I wasn't not Simply Human. They make trash cans and stuff. They did it with a company, and it was really toned down. Like they said, it was peripherals that would work well in an office space.
I'm going to send you a link. Yeah, it's basically how can we rip off Apple?
Yes.
And so let's
Yes,
make
it was
something
these.
white. We'll take away the RGB color. We'll take away everything that we're known for and go the opposite. I mean, this is like Mitt Romney in a snowstorm white.
Right.
Like this thing is so white. It's a good keyboard though. It looks good, and it's the equivalent of brown cherry keys, if you know what that means. But
Mm-hmm.
but no, they have these things, and this is how Razer reacts to the pandemic. They make bland looking products. Product worked great, by the way. It worked great, but it doesn't look like a Razer product. It looks like something else. So, and that's what I'm saying about diluting the brand, is that it doesn't look like a Razer product would look. But to be honest with you, have you seen Razer products? They don't fit in the office specter anyway. Like you're not going
No.
to see grandma with RGB like fuel indexed, lighting trying to do a spreadsheet. Be kind of cool.
Yeah, yes and no. I will say I found it kind of funny that I took my mom to a nail salon like a year and a half ago, pre-pandemic, and they like, I guess, gaming chairs, and I don't recognize the brand, so it must have been off-brand gaming chairs. Every single chair in the nail salon was a gaming chair. Like it still had the plugins for the audio cables and USB ports and things like that. I found that funny, but I mean, bucket chairs are pretty comfortable. I mean, I'm using one. I like it. So
I've seen them elsewhere too, but like I said, Micro Center, which is basically the biggest, whatever they are, they've converted to work at home and streaming and everything, because what happened was there were two big phenomenons. You had the work at home phenomenon, and you also had the esports phenomenon. And it
mhm.
turns out there's a lot of overlap between the two. The problem though is that, like, for everybody who wants a good stay-at-home computer, it's the same. There's 10 people who want a good stay-at-home computer that can also stream video games. So
Yeah.
next thing you know, the desk you thought was okay, the bucket desk, the dresser drawer that you've been using, it's not good enough anymore. The little LED light you had, it's not good enough anymore. So it's a lifestyle thing that you really need to add to. And so it's fun to watch companies like Razer sort of stretch a little bit, and
Yeah.
to stretch their wings a little bit. But as far as the mask goes, that's a huge leap for them. And it feels predatory a little bit, but if it works, it works. But
Well, you know what? If anything else, it's them saying, according to our product research, a lot of people are wearing masks. We should design a mask. Like,
Yeah.
it's also obvious. Like it's predatory, but
their
also
product
obvious.
their product research is like what's trending on Twitter. That's their product research. I just gave
Hashtag
them.
mask.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So actually, speaking of things that are trending on Twitter, that has absolutely no relevance to this next story, but it's a story that I did not cover because I don't know. I didn't really have a strong opinion about it one way or another. And from my understanding, this is going to come from the Wall Street Journal, Discord, Microsoft, that whole thing. I felt like, the first time I heard about this, they were in talks, but it seemed more likely that Discord was actually going to go public on its own. So I don't know
Yeah.
where it's going. But yeah, you brought it up, so let's talk about it for the first time on the show.
Sure. Well, long story short, for those who don't know what Discord is, if you don't know what Discord is, you're probably over 40. But if you're under 40, you probably know what Discord is. Basically, Discord was the genesis of, it's basically an offshoot of what would become Slack and Microsoft Teams. And, basically it's this generation's ICQ, for better terms.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most popular thing with a certain demographic. It's a chat service. And forgive me, I don't know the trajectory. Did it break off from Slack? Because I know Slack and everything. All these programs have their genesis with a video game developer that wanted software to be able to communicate with the team better, and they sort of evolved.
Real quick,
into these
let's see. So the concept
things.
of Discord came from Jason Citron, who had founded OpenFaint, a social gaming platform, mobile games.
Yeah.
He sold OpenFaint to GREE in 2011, and Hammer and Chisel Games Development Studio. So. Looks like it was a chat platform for mobile games, and then broke off from there.
But basically, I mean, they're all clones of the same thing. Like Microsoft Teams, which is, believe it or not, Microsoft Teams is the most popular one, but for obvious reasons. But Slack, of course, is the big one for businesses. Discord's the big one for gamers and streamers. But they all essentially do the same thing because they're all running off the same basic idea. Microsoft has been interested in buying Discord, but like you said, there was talk about Discord going public. Last year, there was a big idea that they were going to become a marketplace. They were going to sell movies. The problem is, I don't think Discord makes any money. And so this is the problem, is that it's really hard to monetize a product like this that doesn't seem to have any real revenue stream. It's popular, but doesn't mean it's profitable. Right. And so the idea that Microsoft has been on a buying streak lately, especially when it comes to games, especially when it comes to games, because internally their internal gaming network is a grotesque, destructive mess. And I love Microsoft, I love the Xboxes, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about their infrastructure, which is a disaster. And they're trying to replace it. Very famously, they bought the one company that they transmogrified in a mixer. And they tried buying their way into the market, didn't work, had to shut it down. Groove Music had to shut it down. So, I mean, like, the idea is that they're going to basically they want to buy a platform that has a pre-existing fan base. Yeah. And they want to integrate in their thing because, again, Microsoft, they just recently rebranded Xbox Live as Xbox Network.
Yeah, something like that, and they're trying to peel the paid for services off of like the free games and essentially get more people into the service. Yeah.
The problem, and I think the thinking is, hey, Discord has all these millions and millions of kids. We want the kids. We want this sort of thing. But the problem, though, is that I'm not sure you can just take a user base and integrate it exactly. They tried this with Skype, didn't work. They tried this sort of thing, didn't work. I mentioned ICQ. AOL tried that with ICQ. It destroyed it. Because sometimes you have these incompatible demographics. Microsoft has its own chat thing. Let me tell you this. So when Microsoft, when they made the Xbox One, they said Connect was going to be a big thing. They put the microphone and everything in the Connect. So everybody said, this is going to be a voice activated network. We're going to be able to chat and do all this stuff. They splintered off the Connect. They killed it off. So they have the new Xbox out. The new Xbox controller doesn't have a microphone. There's no way to communicate with your Xbox directly. You have to get third-party peripherals. So the idea that the Xbox is a 100% communication device is false. Right. That's a problem. Right. But you get Discord on your PC, on your phone, everything. I don't. This would be called like a lateral acquisition. The idea that they would get this user base, they would integrate it with the existing networks. For what reasons, I don't know.
I feel like they're and I'm just going off by Microsoft's history of buying Skype and then trying to do something with Skype, and that didn't work out too well. People actually fled the platform. Although, to be fair, Skype had problems with leaking IPs.
They improved the platform. Like, that's the weird thing. Like, they improved the platform.
But they missed, like honestly, if Microsoft had not messed up with Skype 10 years ago, Discord would not exist because people would still be using Skype. It's just Skype leaked so much information, including IP addresses, it was just not safe to use. And so they took Skype, and then they also purchased LinkedIn, and they tried to blend LinkedIn, Skype, and I believe they also have now they have like what is that, Meet Now and other productivity things. Microsoft does this thing that I'm afraid that if they do get their hands on Discord, they're going to try to do. And Nathan, I think it's they're trying to take a hint from not from Facebook, where Facebook at least can kind of blend its audiences. You know, if you have a Facebook account, you automatically have like an Instagram account and things like that. You know, things that within Facebook's ecosystem, they're all pretty easy to navigate together. I feel like if they buy Discord, they're going to try to blend it as best they can with LinkedIn, Skype, Meet Now, all this other stuff. And honestly, Discord would not,
No.
oil and water, two different demographics.
That's my point, is that I don't necessarily think that it's going to have the intended fusion they expect it to.
The only way it blends, and speaking of will it blend, the only way it blends is, of course, their Xbox network, like you said. The problem is the majority of people who play video games, as you can see by the market share, are not on Xbox.
Well, not only that though, they're on Xbox's competitors. The statistics show that Discord is like 75% non-US based. And again, I say this with kindness about the Xbox. I like the platform just fine. It's just not very popular. Like
Right.
it's never been like, and I say this with kindness, it's never been that popular. Like the PlayStation is popular. The Switch is very popular. Like the PC is popular. Fortnite, I think Fortnite is the biggest thing for this. You mentioned that they're going to start doing free to play. What you meant was Fortnite, because that's specifically what this is. This is the idea, is that Fortnite would become free to play. It doesn't require Xbox Live subscription, or excuse me, Xbox Network, whatever they call it. So the idea is that they're trying to laterally integrate this thing to become a more open platform. The problem, though, if I can just say this, and I'm pulling this out of my butt, I don't have any facts to back this up, is that I think they may be trying to reinvent the wheel when people are perfectly happy with the wheels they have. And the idea is that Fortnite is already successful on the PC. It's already successful on the phone. It's already successful on the Switch. It's already successful there. Minecraft didn't really become a phenomenon until it left the Xbox platform.
Until it
I've
hit
said this
YouTube.
before.
Yeah.
I've been saying this forever, but Microsoft seems to be building a platform agnostic platform. The idea is that Xbox would sort of, I hate to say this, would fade away as a hardware specific name and become a platform agnostic. How do I say this? A platform agnostic platform, the same way that we have services, like the same way you would, like you said, Facebook. But more to that
kind of like
point,
IBM. IBM powers so much nowadays, and people think, oh, IBM in their heyday, they were so big and so great. Like IBM's bigger than they've ever been, but you just don't buy their computers.
Exactly, because they're not consumer based. But I will say this though, and this is important. I have to say this. The red flag that blows up for me is that Microsoft runs Azure networks, and they moved a lot of their services away from AWS. The problem though, as you saw last year with Twitter and Parler, is that when people say you build a competing network, if you own the server space and you already have a competing product, well, who's to say that if Microsoft, one of the world's biggest companies with one of the world's biggest server platforms, runs one of the world's biggest chat, anything that you would enter the market as a competitor could be seen as a disadvantage. And again, I have the only evidence I have for this is that you saw what happened at the beginning of this year and last year with these huge monopolies. Anybody tries to come up to compete with them, they can quash you, they can squash you, and they can use any rationale for doing it. And so for people who are saying Microsoft, oh, they're a big company, they have a lot of money, let me tell you something from watching this for 30 years. The idea that a big company like Microsoft can buy a company and it will be successful because the name on it is Microsoft is total malarkey. It does not work like that. In fact, it's quite often the opposite. When a big company like Microsoft purchases a small company, it could mean the end of the small company, or at least end of their creative zeitgeist.
Yeah, there and that even goes with kind of like the fan base and what people think of it, because even if and I've seen this with like game development studios that are purchased by much bigger names. You could like think like 343, and 343 was purchased by someone else, but then they spun off again. I want to say it was like Ubisoft or someone like that. Anyways,
well, Microsoft. I think Microsoft owns 343, don't they?
No, I think that they're partnered.
They were
but
created.
They spun them off.
Well, they bought Bungie.
Yes, Bungie is definitely Microsoft, and 343 spun off to do the Halo franchises and stuff like that. But I'm thinking like specifically of Destiny, and I want to say that it was like Ubisoft or one of these other game companies took over 343.
Well, Activision got a hold of Bungie, I think. No, I'm sorry, Blizzard. Look, all we're saying
Activision
is that
Blizzard, yeah.
when Microsoft tends to buy your developer, the talent tends to flee. And that's a real problem. Like when they purchased Rare from Nintendo back in the early 2000s, they basically bought the name. And again, when they purchased Bungie, they had a few good years with the Halo franchise until eventually it became exhausting for them. And so they're basically buying the IP, and that's a problem.
Well, and I guess my little half point about that was even if it didn't really happen, even if people think that, Microsoft killed X product or Google killed X product or whatever, that's that could just be in the public perception, and behind the scenes they could give them all the financial security and creative freedom to do what they wanted, and just the turning of that perception could just be enough to just push it over the edge. I mean, that has happened before. So
I'll just say this, though. And again, there's no evidence that this could be, but Microsoft owns Microsoft Teams, which is virtually the same product as Discord, and except it's business centered. And Microsoft Teams was seen in engaging in monopolistic practices against its competitor Skype because it was laterally integrated into Office 365 productivity suites. And lo and behold, Microsoft Teams is now used more than Skype. Used more than Slack. And
Right.
so you have these competing services, and I'm sorry, but the market can only handle so much. And the lifespan of a Silicon Valley product like Discord is the same as the lifespan of a tsetse fly. Like it burns brightly, but it burns quickly. And what happens to that software is anybody's guess. It could be integrated with one thing, it could be integrated with another. And if I can bring up another acquisition that time has forgotten about,
Last one. Sure.
Microsoft essentially invented this market in the 1990s when they purchased Hotmail. Like Hotmail, I mean, think about it. If you think about it, Microsoft, at some point, Microsoft saw the future as web-based, and they purchased Hotmail, and it's been integrated so thoroughly, it's now Outlook. And so this is, I mean, they don't always fail. Like there is a vision at Microsoft that a company like Google doesn't understand. So Microsoft's track record with acquisitions has been much better than its competitors.
Yeah,
Much better.
Microsoft, obviously, they are, as much as people talk about Apple and all these other companies, and Amazon, Microsoft, and this according to the article right here, saying that they have a market cap or a market value of about $1.7 trillion. Clearly, they're not doing anything egregiously wrong. They are certainly thriving in, a tech-dominated environment. But, okay, the last thing I want to talk about, though, in terms of evolving companies, I wanted you to just, I don't know if you were following 2 days ago when I think it was, there was like Building the Future or something like that with Intel. Intel laid out their vision of what the future of Intel was going to be. And I was wondering if you had any comments about how Intel is approaching the future.
Well, I like Intel. I like Intel just fine, but they've their public face right now is put on this really obnoxious like sort of like a little dog, like a little tiny yappy dog that out yaps itself. Like it thinks it's still a competitor. The problem about Intel though is that they've made some horrific decisions over the last 3-4 years. They still carry a lot of cachet. They're probably still the market leader, but clearly, like this is a company that was hoisted by its own, petard, and that they've sat and let competitors like Apple get away from them. They've allowed their system on a chip services to dwindle. They've lost huge market share to AMD and Nvidia. The idea that Intel has the cultural cachet it used to doesn't exist anymore. Now there's talk even about Microsoft developing their own CPU. So
although I do want to put that into context where AMD has gained huge market share, in some cases like AMD has doubled in like the desktop CPU
can we just
space.
say this? Can we just say this? Say this? When we talk about AMD though, we're not talking about AMD versus Nvidia. We're talking about AMD as a competitor to Intel.
Yes.
Because they compete on both fronts.
Yes.
And AMD has like you can just close your eyes and you can hear the AMD progress. Like with Intel, it's like a glacier. You don't see it. But AMD's movement has been Godzilla comparatively. Like see their action, what they've been doing.
much like the radioactive growth of Godzilla, AMD has like doubled their market share. But I do want to make it clear, Intel, just when we covered that story on Wednesday, Intel was still at like what 81% for like desktops and CPUs and stuff like that. Like Intel still has the vast majority. Like it's still theirs to lose, but I mean the moves that were made recently, which is what I was really talking about, Nathan. They are going to open up 2 new manufacturing plants in Arizona. I want to say they're investing $20 billion into getting these manufacturing plants open so that they don't have to rely on chips from Southeast Asia, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, what have you. And then even beyond that, they are going to start using their competitors such as TSMC, Sony, what have you, to build those better chips. Like you were saying, their research and development has been lacking. They're going to use their competitors to kind of catch up in the short term, and then in the long run, they're going to they're hoping catch up in production and then also sell production to their competitors as well. That's kind of their long. Well,
let me ask you a question. We saw the same thing happen with Motorola years ago, where Motorola, we're going to build in the US. We're not going to rely on Foxconn. We're going to do this. Yeah, it didn't work. Like, name an example. Name one example, just one, in any field, any genre, anything, where homegrown anything was cheaper than foreign grown thing. Like, especially when it comes to manufacturing, comes to manufacturing chipsets.
First things first, Intel has been producing its own chips in the United States, forever. Like that's just been a thing. And don't get me wrong, that could be some of the cost difference, in some of the devices, including Android versus, Intel devices. Now, and I'm sure that Apple is saving a ton of money as well by outsourcing to China. There's been a larger talk, and it gets a little bit into politics with the Eurozone. Biden has weighed in on it. Just the fact that we are solely dependent on one part of the world that is prone to natural disaster, political uprising, economic factors, that if anything happened to Southeast Asia, the world would not have a production line for chips. Like everything flows through that part of the world.
Ben, a boat gets stuck in a canal and it shuts down an economy. Okay, so
I heard
who's ever dealt with
$400 million an hour.
A boat, one boat.
It's crazy.
Hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have this big boat going down this narrow tube. But no, that's what you're talking about. But that's what you're talking about with Asia, by the way.
Yes.
We're too dependent on them. We're too dependent on them for this sort of thing.
So that's why I say, is it going to compete? Like it doesn't. I think at this point there's so much. There's so many other factors other than business and pure financials that are going into these decisions that, there's going to be subsidies. There's going to be lots of contracts. There's going to be lots of talk. And also they were talking about having facilities real quick in Ireland and I think Germany was also going to get one, that they're going to produce them in the US, North America, and Europe as well. So it's not just in that one place.
I mean, but that's fine and everything. But the problem is that if the product's not competitively priced, if it's not integrated vertically, like within systems, like you buy a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox, it's AMD. You buy a lot, like even companies like HP, Dell, Asus, Acer have all gone to HP. To AMD, or they're going into their own things like Apple. They'll just make their own system on a chip for this. And so I've seen nothing from Intel that addresses the market bleed.
I think just having availability, I'm completely honest, having the production capacity, and they're hoping to get this up by 2023. And some estimates say that, we're still going to have a shortage by 2022, maybe even into 2023. Just being able to produce them is going, like, just having them, it will sell them. Like someone somewhere is going to buy these things regardless of their price. The availability is so short that just having them, and you will have a guaranteed
Nobody
sale.
stays on top forever. And when people say, oh, you got 80% market share, I remember this exact same argument that Steve Ballmer made about Microsoft regarding Internet Explorer and Windows Mobile back in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's even videos about it. Like there's something about it with tech companies there's some sort of arrogance that rots the innovative brain, where you get to this threshold where you have this market share and innovation stops and you think you've made it. Like, they don't understand how volatile the markets are. You can have 80% market share in one generation and have 5% in the next generation. And it doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter how successful you are. It doesn't matter anything. And the only people who say, I never saw it coming, are the people too blind to have seen it coming. And I'm telling you right now, you don't look at market share like it's like a glacier. You don't look at the movement of the glacier. You look at the movement of the water around the glacier. And I don't see any movement with Intel to suggest that they're doing any real substantive change. Look, I have 3 Intels in my house. I have an Intel on my laptop.
Mhm.
I think I have an Intel on my phone. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is I'm platform agnostic. But at the end of the day, I have AMD in my computer because it was cheaper and faster.
The
And if they could do that for me, I'll buy it.
the plans that they have set in motion, or at least that they have announced and they are working on, tens of billions of dollars of investment, a doubling down on production in other, on production facilities, because there was a point a couple of months ago where there was a group of investors looking to actually get Intel to scrap its manufacturing process altogether and simply farm it out to TSMC. So I'm glad that they double down on producing their own stuff, America or otherwise. The fact that, it's just not all 3 companies is great. And of course, having new flows of business that they're looking to start generating. I mean, they recently put a hardware manufacturing guy in charge, and I'm already starting to see some of the positive changes that is. Not a marketing guy, not a financial guy. They put someone who started with the company making chips, and he seems like he's going to put the company back to making chips. And
Well, can I
like
give you an
that.
example?
What's that?
Thunderbolt, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Thunderbolt was a huge innovation. It's a gigantic innovation in like singular ports.
Yeah.
But the pugnacity of Intel, coupled with a company like Apple, like forbade this technology from becoming mainstream like it should have. Instead, what happened is what happened to their chip dominance is that a cheaper, more efficient competitor,
USB.
USB-C,
Yeah.
USB was allowed to continue. And the idea that, like I said, it's nice that they're making more chips, but what are these chips going to do that the other chips can't do cheaper? And that's a problem. You can have a chip that can do 10 billion trillion operations per second, but if it costs $900, I'm going to get the chip that could do only 50 billion operations if it costs less. And so you can have the greatest thing in the world, but if there's not value incentive for it, it's not going to sell. And that's a problem.
Right.
That's a problem. Like that's just what this is right now. You're right, by the way, about supply and demand. Goodness gracious, trying to buy stuff right now is difficult. Trying to buy good stuff, trying to buy cheap stuff, that stuff falls off the trees. But trying to find a good processor right now for cheap, like we built a CPU computer last year, and we had to like scramble like zombies trying to get brains, trying to get the last AMD processor on the shelf. It was hidden. We got lucky, but no, I'm not paying premium for that. But no, I like Intel, but in order to succeed, they need to bring back the guy in the hazmat suit. They need to bring back the dun 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 dun. They need to bring back something that makes me feel
inside,
comfortable.
Absolutely.
Exactly. They need to bring back the hazmat suit because nothing says awesome like hazmats in an age of pandemics.
Who I think it was Microsoft hired like the I'm a Mac guy. I think.
No, it was Intel. It was Intel.
Oh yeah, that was Intel. There you go.
I said, like that's what I'm saying. They become obnoxious. You can't. It's like when Sprint. It's like when Sprint hired that guy who used to do like T-Mobile. Like, hey, guess what? We have the mascot from 10 years ago. Wow, how great! Have you seen those
I
Intel?
recognize him, and I'm
Terrible.
glad that he's getting work. Did it have the same emotional impact? Nah, probably not.
It's
pathetic. Nathan, let's cover one more thing before we kind of go on. Let's talk movies and a couple of them.
Yeah.
So real quick, if you can, just in a couple minutes, talk about all these Disney Plus moving to just theaters aren't opening up fast enough, it seems.
Not fast enough. Although I was happy to see that Regal Theaters struck a deal with Warner Brothers to finally put some of their movies back in theaters.
Yep.
So full disclosure, we were going to have a get together here, I think next week, to go watch Godzilla versus King Kong or Kong
Mm-hmm.
at the house. But and because I want to see it on the biggest screen as possible, we upgraded our TV to a 75-inch Sony. I don't forget the model, but it's really pretty and bright, and the HDR is really good. And so we were going to have a lot of people over here get popcorn. But now I heard Regal Theaters might be opening, and I'm like, I haven't been to a theater in over a year. And I have a few friends in California where the theaters are starting to open. But no, like the experiment, the idea is that you could create the same cultural phenomenon at home didn't work. Doesn't work. I'm sorry, but your movie, if Avengers Endgame had debuted in home, it wouldn't be exciting. It just wouldn't.
And also, it
And
wouldn't put up those big numbers that movie theaters like.
no, and a lot of that stuff is, like, to be honest with you, a lot of the numbers we see are fake. Like when you see like it earned $1 trillion or whatever. No. When you look at the breakdown of this stuff, like movie theaters get this, companies get this, like the actual amount of revenue it earns is very small. There was a story
But
just
that's
last
just
week.
for tax purposes, you know that.
No, I know. But what I mean is, like, for last week, you heard the story about Avatar coming back into Chinese theaters
Yes,
just
to
long
reclaim
enough.
#1. Yes.
Exactly. Like that's the type of pencil pushing that this stuff does. And Disney's the king of this stuff. Like Disney would put movies back in theaters for a weekend, and then they would buy their own theater out so they can pad the box office, so they can reach $100 million. I
Right.
think there was a movie called A Wrinkle in Time that did that, where the movie didn't do very well. They had to buy theaters in order to like justify the write-off. There's a lot of accounting going on. But anyway, I want to see Godzilla and King Kong on a big screen. They're big monsters. They deserve a big screen. But that's not what I'm talking about. You're talking about Pixar's Luca. You're talking about
Black
Disney's
Widow and
Cruella,
Cruella as well.
Black Willow. Yeah. So basically, they haven't figured out the formula. So
Black
for Pixar
Widow.
movies,
I'm sorry, Widow. Oh my
yeah,
God,
that
Widow.
poor
Okay.
movie's been bounced around. And so, but basically, here's the thing: Disney has two things. They have Disney Plus, which was promised as a complete service, a Netflix competitor. They've since then changed the deal where they have Disney Premiere, where you have to have Disney Plus, then you pay $30, and you get to rent a movie for you get it included in your
Right.
account. But if you wait 3 months, the movie goes in your account anyway. And so, uh, so they did two experiments last year. They did Mulan, which cost $30, and they put Soul, which didn't cost anything. And
Mm-hmm.
apparently, Soul was by far the bigger movie. Duh, you didn't have to pay $30. It was also the better movie. So, but they're going to continue this experiment with Cruella and Black Widow, where they're going to charge $30 for admission, and with Pixar's Luca, they're going to dump it on the service and see what happens. Um, I would love to see the revenue that these movies are making, but they're not sharing it. But I guarantee you two things: one, more people are going to watch Luca legally, and more people are going to watch Black Widow illegally, because that's how this stuff works. And I feel bad for Scarlett Johansson, because this was supposed to be a big movie for her. Like this was this
Yeah.
was a huge deal last year, and this poor movie's been switched and moved all around. I don't give two flying doggy doos about Cruella, which looks like a horrid piece of doggy doo.
I think you mean
But
101 doggy twos.
you know what? This is how you ruin a character. By the way, this is how you dilute the characters, like what made her so fascinating. Glenn Close did a pretty good job, but I'll be honest with you, and I like Emma Stone, but this movie looks terrible. But no, but Black Widow looks okay. I wanted to see it. I'm kind of done with these superhero movies, but I still kind of want to see it. Um, I think everybody would prefer to see these movies in a theater. It's where they were designed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But at least it's coming out. At least they finally said, screw it, we're going to put it out. Whereas Warner Brothers and HBO Max, which is kind of the thing, they're still experimenting with theaters.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun to see how that works. I would love to see theaters come back. I mean, I don't want to say this prematurely, but we're nearing the end of this thing. It's happening. And I'm not saying I want life to go back to normal. I want things to get better, but I want theaters to open back up. I don't want theaters to go away. I love movie theaters. I think a lot of people do. There's nobody saying, "Hey, let's get rid of theaters."
There's been a lot of talk lately about the pent up anticipation to, like you said, not get back to normal, but
Well,
fly again, to go to theaters again, to go out to eat again, to do that kind of thing.
can I say
People,
something? Can I
yeah,
say something?
what's that?
What I said before, that the pandemic has proven two things about human nature. It's also proven that the reason we like going to movie theaters and watching, because there's something collective about it. There's something about hearing people laugh and cry and cheer that you do not get at home. And I'm going to be honest with you, that sort of thing is built into movies. Like when you're at a theater and you see the Lucasfilm thing, oh, woo, the movie might be crap, but you still have that collective woo, and it's fun. And you laugh at stuff you'd never laugh at your house. You go back and watch Austin Powers Goldmember in the theater, you're crying your eyes out laughing. You watch it at home, I don't get it. Because because you need that collectivism. It's fun.
Well, while I never saw it in theaters myself, I have heard people say
I saw
that
it four times. Four times in theater.
Well, no, I'm thinking of the Avengers Endgame when obviously Captain picked up Thor's hammer. Spoiler alert.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think everyone who watched it in theaters collectively
cheered.
Freaked out. So
yeah, because we're human. We like that stuff. We cheer.
Yeah, absolutely.
We like it. Movies are fun.
Nathan, unfortunately, we don't really. I think we have like a minute left. Unfortunately, and there's music actually. We did not get to a couple things. I wanted your opinion on the Snyder cut of the Justice League.
Haven't seen it yet, but it's 4 hours long.
Yeah, it's a big one. More Suicide Squad, the new trailer that they had there, as well as some of your other podcasts that you can find over at Popzara. Nathan, if people go over there, what would you recommend they check out?
Everything, but go check out the podcast. We got a new podcast on Movie Time with Roger Rabbit, and we got a new podcast about video games. It's fun. Go listen. It's free. It's totally free. Go listen right now.
Absolutely. Everyone, hey, we'll be back next week, Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Nathan, again, thank you so much for joining us on the show every single month. Last Friday of the month, Nathan's here. And everyone, hey, until next time, we'll catch you then. Bye, everyone.
Have a good weekend.